Welcome your hosts Caddy Frank and Erin Fitzgerald as they lead discussions about substance use disorder and the journey to recovery. You're listening to Redefining Recovery, a recovery revolution.
Welcome everyone out there in Radio Land. I was not here last week and I missed this and missed just the whole experience because this is really, as we all know, I'll say it over and over again, it's the dream come true. So I want to welcome everybody. This is Redefining Recovery, a recovery revolution, brought to you by Minnesota Recovery Connection. My host, Caddy. Mm-hmm. My name is Caddy Frank, the host, and across the lovely table from me is Miss Erin Fitzgerald.
Good morning. I'm happy to be here. I'm so happy that you're back. It was really nerve-wracking not having you here.
Well, you know what? I know you did amazing. I heard just the wee bit of the opening. Truth be told, I haven't listened to the whole show because it didn't drop till yesterday. So we're here now, baby.
Yeah. Thank you for being here. And also a special thanks to our generous funders, including the Patrick and Amy Butler Family Foundation, Otto Bremer Trust, the Sauer Family Foundation, and the Hardenberg Foundation, alongside our other many foundation, corporate, and individual contributors for making this podcast series possible. Yay.
We gotta thank the folks that keep us on.
Absolutely.
I listen to a public radio station in Minnesota right now, and they are doing their annual often fundraising.
Yeah.
And I realized, you know what? We at Minnesota Recovery Connection are a nonprofit organization. And guess what? We have incredible funders, as well as we can always use a little more.
Yes.
So we'll talk about that at the end of the show. But it's very important for us to recognize. So Miss Erin, we're back in the saddle again. So what is right with you today, my friend?
Yeah, what's right with me? Nothing. I found a gray hair in my eyebrow this morning. Just kidding. Everything's right. It took me by surprise when I saw that. Gray hairs are different when they find them in different locations.
No
kidding.
Right?
So what is right, though? I know this morning is kind of gloomy, but the weather, I'm happy that it's May. That means that June and July and August are coming, and that's weather I can get down with. So bring it on.
Bring it on.
Yeah.
Bring on that spring.
What's right with you?
You know, what's super right with me is I was out of town last week. Erin and I were in the Northland doing some training, and when I came back, everything had bloomed down here. It was so exciting because we were in the Duluth area, and then I went way north of that, but it hasn't really sprung up there yet. And so when I came home, I'm like, look at all the green things.
Color.
Well, my hostas are coming, my bushes are blooming, my weeds are overtaking everything. But you know what? That just, like you said, that means that spring and summer are on the way, and that just gives me rejuvenation to go forward.
Yes.
So
Yay.
What's our conversation today? What did we decide?
Oh, we're going to talk about some trauma.
Wow, trauma. You know, trauma happens just about everywhere, every day.
Yeah, to anyone.
Anyone.
All sorts of different ways.
Yeah, and, you know, not just around people with substance use disorder. We all know that there's a connection there. I think what's really important is that when Erin and I were first beginning this show a few weeks ago now. Wow, a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
Isn't that exciting?
I guess.
Woo! We were talking about some areas around what substance use is and some of the things that bring us to substance use disorder. And I had sort of posed a question at Erin when she was telling us her story about how she came into substance use disorder at times in her life. And so I want to turn the microphone back over to Erin because she's had some epiphanies, some understanding. So, Erin, I turn it to you, my dear.
Yeah, thank you. Just some reflection about that show. The second episode, and I got to have a nice conversation with my therapist about it because I didn't realize how much it affected me. I knew it affected me in the moment, and it affected me in ways that I didn't foresee coming because we're talking about recovery. We're talking about our stories. I talk about my story all the time, even about when I was younger. And I think that it was not a question, but there was a statement. And it was, and I know that as soon as you said it, you physically saw me change, and you immediately kind of tried to cover it. You said, "Erin, take me back to that 12-year-old girl." And I don't know exactly what was going through my brain, because it was like that fight or flight moment. And all of these things were in my brain, and I went back to that 12-year-old girl and all of those specific things. And you saw that change in me, and you said, "I don't mean the specific details, but take me back to what you were feeling." But in that moment, I didn't go back. I went back to those specific things. And I had an agenda when I was talking about my story and different things that I wanted to kind of touch on. And the traumas that I experienced as a young girl weren't part of that. But those traumas basically are, abuse in all of the ways that you can imagine. Nothing really extreme, but, there's neglect and physical abuse and sexual abuse and mental abuse, So there was all of those things were factors before the age of 12. And so when you said that to me, I don't know exactly what it triggered, but it activated something in my brain. And then, after I started speaking during the show, it was almost like I was kind of disassociated. And I started telling a story that I didn't really have any intention of telling, and it sounded kind of like mumbo jumbo, and so I was really embarrassed about the show in general. And it's a brand new radio show. We're brand new to this. I already don't know what I'm doing, and now I'm feeling extra embarrassed. So now it's like I've revisited my trauma, and my trauma gives me more trauma now, because now I'm embarrassed on the radio and anybody can hear me at any given time. And so after the conversation with my therapist, and speaking with you, it just all made a little more sense to me. And I've decided that I can get over it, and we can continue on with this radio show. And it was just a learning experience for me, and understanding that we don't know when trauma is going to revisit us.
Right.
And having these conversations, I have to be aware of that. I have to be aware of the fact that you might accidentally say something to me, or me to you, and I have to be present in the moment, so that I don't lose focus of what we're trying to do here.
Wow. Thank you for, this is what we call vulnerability in our world. And I don't just mean in substance use, just in everything, because when Erin can sort of unfold where that pain was, and I still see it right now, because it's still a space that you are looking for continued work, healing, all that. And sometimes we can't heal completely, and I think that's really important to recognize, but we can get better. We can begin to put a soft Band-Aid on something. Never maybe completely, and we don't necessarily want to rip it off, but I think what happened in that day is that I kind of took a little bit of that Band-Aid off and showed that space. And so I just thank you for sharing with me personally, because I did see the pain that day, and sharing with our audience that has struggles every single day.
Yeah. Well, and that's just part of it, is like, when we're recovering, again, it's not just from the substance, it's from life. And I don't know how life is going to turn out today. I don't know what's going to come across my plate and how I'm going to react to it. But just understanding, like, that's a trigger for me then. Now I understand. I get activated when I have to talk about young Erin or certain areas of my life. So I have to put myself in the right mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we do have to protect ourselves. We have to protect ourselves, and I think that's critically important. So when we come back, I'm going to talk about a little event that happened to me when we were up in Duluth, and then we're going to talk about how trauma interacts with us as humans, interacts with us with substance use disorder, interacts with how we can maintain and continue our recovery, because our recovery is a journey. We know that. And every now and then there's something that pops up, and we have to just go, take a deep breath and go, what do I do next to protect myself? So when we return from our break, we will continue this productive conversation on how do we manage our trauma Thank you very much.
Welcome back. We are redefining recovery. I'm Erin, and I have with me here Caddy, and we are talking today about trauma and trauma-informed approaches. And so we're gonna. Caddy's gonna tell us a little bit about what happened to her this last week when she was up north. But for trauma, I think that it's really important to understand where it comes from, like how I became the person I am. I don't recognize that there's even trauma there oftentimes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so exposure to traumatic events, especially as children, can really play a role. And so there's an adverse childhood experiences study done, and there's just like 10 questions on there we can ask ourselves, and that can kind of rate our kind of expectant whether we will have these mental health issues, substance use issues. And it also just helps us kind of understand where we're coming from, why we're the way we are, and to not blame ourselves. And it's not to blame other humans and their role in our lives also, but just to have better understanding. And so that can be really important. Caddy, will you share your experience over the last week?
I want to just add in the acronym to adverse childhood experiences, at ACEs. Many people have taken the ACEs questions, potentially with their therapist or with a counselor or with somebody. So sometimes people know it as ACEs. So I wanted to just add that in. So yeah, I was up in Duluth and we were doing a training. Erin came up for a couple of days and actually saved me because I got a really bad cold. So if I sound a little deeper and a little bit more, I don't know, sexy, just kidding, it's because I've got a cold. But I was born in Duluth. So I have a real tight connection with it as a child, up there all the time because my father's from Duluth. And my father died back in December, and it was extraordinarily unexpected. I say from ambulance to death was 11 hours, so had no idea that this was going to happen. And when I was up in Duluth, I had these roaring memories coming back because whenever I went up to Duluth to do work, he was like, "Oh, okay, cool. Where are you going to go? You're going to go to the Coney Island place, or we have all these little places. You're going to drive by his mother's house, which was up on Skyline Drive." And so I'm sitting at the table, welcoming the group that we had that morning, and all of a sudden this wave came over me because I was living in my own sadness that my father is gone, and then I waved into the story that he had about his childhood, which is extraordinarily traumatic. He was one of 3 children. They got rescued from a burning house because both parents were out of the house. I'm going to probably make an assumption here, but they were not necessarily out at church. They were possibly doing other things, maybe at a bar or your local tavern. And they were rescued from a house, and then all of them were put into orphanages, and my father was adopted. And he never really knew his siblings until literally into his, I think, 50s, because it was all so scattered. We're talking about 1947, 48, 49, so adoption was blacked out, different things. And so to dial back to where this is coming from is that I kind of relived a bit of his trauma, and then I wrapped my own around it, and I started crying, and everybody in the room was like, what the heck's going on? But at the same time, I had to take that moment. And I think there's a reality that when somebody sees somebody who is like this perceived really super strong human who's in charge of something crack, it's like, oh, we can all be human. If she cries, that means I can cry. Or if she feels something, then I can feel something. And I think that's one of the greatest gifts that I have learned in my career now with Minnesota Recovery Connection and being in front of humans almost all the time. And that is when I see those little moments happen, And so for me, I shed some tears. I kind of discussed what was going on with myself. And Erin, so incredibly graciously, everyone, she put her hand on my shoulder and she said, Caddy really hasn't had much time to grieve her father. Now she's going to well up right now, so I have to look at the fake plant in the room because then I will start to well up. Because this is what it's like, folks, when we are reliving some of these deep moments. It's both tears and then we remember what happened. And so my father's trauma, I think there's an element of it that came back onto me as I grew up because he didn't know how to parent very well because he didn't have much parenting until he was 9 or 10. And then that situation was a little bit quirky, and we won't go into the details on that. And so trauma is generational, historical. It is everywhere. And what we need to recognize is that what is it that we need to do? Because sometimes when we ignore it, then we bury it, and then we have to do something to make it not come up again. And I know that was my friend alcohol. Mm-hmm. And my friend alcohol kept it buried. Yeah. What happened, you know, I'm being all of a sudden super sensitive
No, don't
about that. So trauma, that's what I used.
Mm-hmm.
What was your experience when all that is down there and you want to keep it down there? What did it look like for you?
Oh, it was definitely not talking about it and trying to hide it with alcohol and not feel the feelings because that what felt better was to not feel the feelings. When you talk about generational trauma, I was just kind of reminded last week that historical trauma and generational trauma are different. Mm-hmm. And you are working really hard now at breaking that generational trauma. And you didn't know things about your family until, later in life. Mm-hmm. And there's things that I don't know about my grandparents and my parents. And maybe I'm starting to learn about it and maybe I'm not, but I have an idea. And now I have this opportunity because there was substance use back then in those generations and now in mine. And I have an opportunity to break that generational trauma and talk about it and say, hey, man, this is what was going on. This is what happened. This is what I'm doing about it now. And I want my children to have a better life than that. Mm-hmm. And so breaking that generational trauma can be just really empowering and totally important.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned historical trauma. Mm-hmm. So historical trauma is when it is beyond generations. Right. It is going back hundreds of years. Yeah, a group, and it's going back an entire group of individuals. And we know that there are several different types of historical trauma, and it happens in many groups of individuals: the Native American community, the African American community, Black community, the Hmong community, the Asian community. And I mean, if we even look at it, the Irish, when they came to this country, were just, pushed off to the side. And just so there's a lot of, sometimes there's, and I think about, St. Patrick's Day, and I think about Jewish. All the, and Jewish, yes. And I think about how we can make jokes about all the, let's drink the green beer and let's all have fun and let's party.
It's in my blood, man.
Yeah. So I got to do it. But do I? Mm-hmm. Is that where that historical stuff comes from, and somehow it's embedded? Mm-hmm. And so, and not casting any shame on any groups at all, and not pointing out any one group at all, but we have to remember that historical trauma can happen in a lot of different ways. Right. And then we have that generational trauma. What's in your family unit that happened that needs to sort of come to the surface? So Erin gave me some really good literature that I want to talk about ever so slightly, is the 3 E's of trauma. And there's the event. These events or circumstances may occur in a single occurrence or repeatedly over time. And then there's the individual experience of these events, circumstances that help determine whether it is a traumatic event in particular. But those experiences, Erin was saying to me, is that everybody's going to experience that event differently. Mm-hmm. A sibling might experience an event differently. Like if I were to use my dad as an example, I don't think his 2 other siblings that he met much later in life literally had the same experience because they went someplace else.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, and then then there's and I get this from the training that we do, and then there's sort of like a little equals the effects of what happens. So the long-lasting adverse effects of the event are a critical component of trauma. I am reading off of a sheet of paper, just so you all know I'm not that smart. These events may occur intermittently, or they might be delayed on their onset. So it's really important when you encounter somebody who's struggling with substance use disorder. And I had to do this with someone who I recently was engaged in trying to help a child, not a child, but their child, a young man. And I was like, is there anything going on in the past that kind of brings us to where do we think we are now? And then that defense mechanism comes up. Like, oh, well, I was a great parent and I did this and I did that. And I just said, no. I'm not questioning what you might have done. Is there something else that happened that maybe you're not even aware of that brought this young person to needing to bury the hurt, the pain? So sometimes we want to get all defensive. It's like, well, it wasn't me. And I'm not pointing any fingers.
Yeah.
It's about what happened to an individual that maybe you're not even aware of.
It's about finding understanding so that we know how to treat that trauma, because there's so many different ways that we can go about it, right? Different therapies, different, just all sorts of pathways when it comes to trauma, as well as, the pathways to substance use disorder. And understanding, too, that the effects can happen 20 years after the effect, after the event, right? We'd have no idea when something's going to be activated again. This weekend I was having a conversation with a friend, and she told me a really great story. This is kind of perfect, actually. She had received a phone call from her husband at one point, and he answered and said, "Where are you?" And that led to a traumatic experience. And in the moment, she was really calm. It was an unexpected kind of thing, but at the same time, not really. And so they got through that experience, and life has gone on. And then years later, he called her, and she answered the phone, and he said that exact same thing. "Where are you at?" And she said immediately her heart started to race, and she just felt like, whew. What do you mean? You can't say that to me. She had no idea, though, that those words were going to affect her.
Wow.
Yeah. So we have no idea when this is going to creep in and take control.
Right.
And how it's going to do that. Is it going to just be palpations for a minute, or is it going to set us off into a different kind of whirlwind?
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing, because there are times you just sort of brought up a little bit of stuff in my head. I love my partner, Eric. He's a fantastic human. But every now and then he'll say something with a tone, and I will just get this visceral reaction. And this is going to sound, and honey, I love you, so don't be upset by me telling you this, but whenever he whistles, for some reason, there's something way back in the caverns of my brain. I literally shut my door in my space. And I'm like, I just can't hear whistling. And I don't know where it comes from.
That's interesting.
But those are those hidden things that.
Does it bother you if I whistle at work? Do I not whistle?
You on occasion do. And I'll close my door.
Oh, I had no idea.
And neither did I.
Wow.
It's so, these are those weird little things that, and it's not personal. It has nothing to do with Erin whistling. It's something that's back in these archives of our experiences. And no, let's just be clear. This isn't going to lead me to have a reuse in my substance. But it's one of those things.
Yeah, it brings up two things. It brings up like re-traumatizing people, because I'm not necessarily re-traumatizing you. It's affecting you in a way, but thank you for telling me, because I would definitely not be whistling in the office anymore. It's probably annoying to many people. But so that is the first thing, re-traumatizing you, but also where we store things. Sometimes we have no idea, right? And there's a book called The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk, who's a neuroscientist. And the moral of the book is the impact of trauma on the brain and how it affects us physically. Because oftentimes people have physical pain and we don't know where it's coming from. And it can be from an experience, and it's stored somewhere in our body.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so interesting.
Wow. Well, and that brings me to one of the statements that we talk about when we say, uh, sorry, my brain just went, trauma-informed care. Because trauma-informed care is not what's wrong with someone, but what's happened to someone. And that's a really important component to when we're working with individuals and helping people and just wondering what's going on. Somebody has a reaction to somebody whistling, and rather than get mad, I just close a door because now I can manage that. But what happened? I don't know. And maybe at some point I'll figure it out. I think it comes from my dad. I don't know why. It's really where I think it derives from. So I still have learning to do. This 60-year-old chick has got to still figure out stuff. But I can also just sort of just let it not bug me too much. But I can't just not talk about it, because right now I was able to help myself in our office situation.
Absolutely.
And that's where it comes, it's like something comes up, sort of evaluate it, look at it. And so I want to just talk about they're called the key principles of trauma-informed approach. We want to make sure that people are safe, because sometimes safety, it doesn't look like they're physically safe, but are they emotionally safe? Are we in any way traumatizing? Want to look at when we're working and we're talking to people, are we trustworthy and are we transparent? So we don't have any sort of hidden agenda when we're working with folks.
I think that almost ties in with the safety, because a lot of times people don't reach out for services because they don't feel safe, because they don't feel trust, because they've been traumatized in certain services.
Yeah, and I just learned about some of the services that we're involved in, where some individuals they exposed themselves and they didn't feel like they were being heard, which can be a real sting, a real sting. And so that's really important, because there's where that trust lies and that safety. Oh, can I expose myself to you? But
What are you going to do with that?
Yeah, what are you going to do with it? Or are you not going to do anything with it? And I've just literally laid who I am out on a table, because that's where peer support comes in with Minnesota Recovery Connection. The whole reason why we're sitting on this beautiful table, this beautiful place at AM 950, is because we are talking about how we can redefine recovery and come to some supports around folks. Another thing that we talk about with trauma-informed care is collaboration and mutual relationships. When we're doing this work, we're at the table. We may have different experiences. I might have more recovery time. I'm using air quotes, which is not seen on radio. But what it is that I just might have more experience, but my experience doesn't override your experience. We all share something, because substance use disorder came in as our release valve.
And we experience things differently.
Yeah.
So it all has value.
Yeah, exactly. Empowering someone, giving them choice and voice, man, it's one of the main things that we talk about doing this, and that is so many individuals that have struggled with their substance use, and maybe they've had this trauma behind them. They have not been heard. They've not been heard maybe for decades, and they might have not been heard from childhood. And what we do is we give people their voice back, and then what Erin and I experienced a while back when she was talking about her young years, and that is she was given the choice to just sort of pause that and be able to come back today and say, wait a minute, I want to revisit that because I have the choice now, and with some therapy and with supportive individuals. And then really incredibly important is understanding people's culture, where they come from, how they have interpreted their substance use, the historical trauma, which we've talked about, and then we have the gender issues as well. We are in a different movement in terms of understanding people's humanness, and when somebody is struggling with their gender identity, and that can mean many different things, people. And I think what we will do is we're going to bring the Pride Institute in and have an incredible conversation about how substance use and gender comes in. But we just have to be sensitive, just sensitive, because I didn't choose to be an alcoholic. I was just about ready to use a bad word. I had a lot of stuff come at me that I just couldn't cope with. Those traumatic events. And I can honestly say the trauma was not gigantic, but it was consistent.
Yes, and that is part of trauma too. It's like it doesn't have to be a big event. It can be little things. It can be one time even, but especially if it's a reoccurring event, absolutely.
Yeah. And I want to just kind of go through a little list of how trauma can sort of show up. So when we re-experience trauma, what happens is that feelings, memories, they kind of come back to the surface, and that can come through anger and sadness, but it can be nightmares, flashbacks, uncontrolled visual images, traumas and memories. I just all of a sudden realized that I've got something that I got to work on. Man, poof, just had a real just realization when I said flashbacks, distressing thoughts and feelings, emotional or physical responses, like you were saying, after experience a trauma reminder. I like the word that you use, it gets activated, because I think that's what happens. And sometimes what we do is we use drugs or alcohol, or we use behaviors too.
Yeah, because I don't know how long that's going to be activated, and can I handle it being activated? And now that I've got, some time in recovery, I can handle those situations. But in my early recovery, when I was triggered or activated, I had to go to my substance. I needed that to go away.
Yeah, just needed
immediately.
Do not pass go.
Absolutely.
Yeah, let me go too.
Please.
Yeah, please.
Thank you.
Fast. Thank you very much. Yes. So other ways that we avoid it is, activities that might not be healthy for us. I don't just mean using substances. We're talking about sexual activity. We're talking about gaming. We're talking about isolation. We're talking about so many things that people can do, even overdo things. Good friend of mine, long time, they rode their bike all the time, up mountains, down mountains, across the country, here and there. And we know sometimes we trade. We
Yes.
trade things. It may look healthy, but are we doing it excessively?
Right.
Which can bury sometimes that stuff. So it's just really important when somebody gives a reaction to a conversation, or they're still in their active use and they're not talking, just sit back and ask, hey, what happened? What's going on? Is there anything that I can offer you? But more than anything, I'll just be here to listen, because that's what we do if we're really wanting to care for someone. Not tell them what they should do, not tell them where they should go, not tell them that it's time for them to get their SHIT together. I'm tired of you being like this. What are some of the things that you heard back in the day when you were just like, you didn't have your SHIT together? They're like,
I don't know. Mostly I think people just exited my life.
Hello. Yeah.
It was a whole lot of quit drinking and get your stuff together. What's wrong with you? Yeah.
What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
I just clapped my hands. I shouldn't do that. That's exactly it. It's like, what's wrong with you? Why can't you stop? I have had my little grandma. I've talked about my little grandma.
Yeah.
She's the best thing in the entire world. She lived to be 101. She's the best thing. But she was old. And her sister struggled back in the day with alcohol real bad. And she all of a sudden had a daughter, my mom, who died years ago, and she didn't want to go there. But my mother struggled with alcohol, and then her daughter struggled with alcohol. And my grandmother would just look at me and say, why don't you just stop? I just wanted to say, from a very classic man that was in my AA group, well, if you stop showering, no, what was his line? Why don't you just stop? What did Larry say? Larry said, stop. Oh, heck, I can't remember. I'll bring it back next time. Something about showering. If I could stop showering, then I'd stop. I don't know. I can't remember.
If I could stop showering and still smell nice?
I don't know. I can't remember. Erin, save me right now. Save me. I can't remember. Gosh darn it, Larry.
Anyways, it's not ever about what's wrong with you.
No.
Yeah.
No. And the fact is that we have to help people when they struggle. They're struggling, and it's not just because they're using a chemical. It's because there's generally something below the surface that either hasn't been loved, cared for, or talked about For decades.
Right, because the thing is that something is wrong with me, but what happened? Like,
Right.
why is it wrong?
Right.
Right, so just word it differently,
Yeah.
literally.
Literally
Just say it differently.
Yeah. Say, I love you and I want to know more.
We have to have opportunities to talk about, especially to talk about our traumas in safe places and safe spaces. If we don't have the opportunity, we can't get off these cycles. And so we will come back in a minute or two and finish up our conversation about trauma. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. Man, what did I say? Stop showering. Oh, love this. So, we are back for our last segment, and man, we are grooving at the table to this music. It's just beautiful. So, in the words of Larry from my meeting, I'll stop drinking if you stop taking your showers. And I was like, sum it up. This was a man who was so important to me in my meetings back in the day. He was just precious and wonderful. And sadly, he got hit by a car and died. And we were broken as a meeting.
Interesting.
Talk about trauma. He was just bringing his car in to be serviced, walking home, and he was hit by a car. But you know what? Larry lives on because it took a while, but I remembered that little quote from him. So Larry up there, he was, and I say this with everybody just know, he was a Jubu. He was a Jewish Buddhist, and he called himself very, very proudly, I'm a Jubu.
Larry lives on.
Larry lives on. So we're going to bring back the conversation around trauma, and Erin's got some really great points to talk about.
Yeah, so we're just continuing on with some common reactions to trauma. Negative thoughts or feelings. Negative thoughts or feelings may begin or worsen after experiencing a trauma. Some of these thoughts or feelings might not seem to relate directly to the trauma, such as excessive blame towards oneself or others related to the trauma. I can't relate to that. Still blaming myself for many things.
Oh, my goodness.
And in the past, it was always blaming others, yeah. Loss of interest in activities. Feelings of isolation or disconnection from surroundings.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Yeah, how much I just wanted to disappear so many times. And I don't want to say disappear in the sense that I wanted to move my life to an end. Just wanted to be invisible.
Absolutely. And there's times now in my life when I notice like I've kind of been isolating for a period of time. And that's when I have to go back and reflect and say, what's going on? Why am I doing this? Because I do love people. I'm also an introvert, but I like the connection. And so if you notice these things in yourself, maybe you have to take a look inward. You can have difficulty experiencing positive feelings. Yeah, loss of memory related to the trauma. Absolutely. Or when you revisit the trauma, you can kind of lose focus of that time and space that you're in currently.
Let me take a step back to that loss of memory. I realized, and I had talked to Dr. Sue Hoisington, who's someone who does mental health and co-occurring with us, marvelous, marvelous human being. And I was always frustrated because I can't remember my childhood. I can remember snapshots from pictures. And so I built a lot of stories around those pictures. And I went to Sue one day and I'm like, Sue, what do I do to get that back? What do I do to remember that? And she said something so profound to me. And she says, do you really need to?
Yeah.
And I was like,
wow.
Well, maybe my psyche
Yeah.
is taking really good care of me.
Sure.
And I don't know if there's something I don't want to remember, but she just gave me permission to just let that go. And I did.
That's so good.
Yeah, it's like, you don't have to. I'm like, are you sure? And she's like, no. I mean, if your brain says it's not there, why bring it out? Because it could, in the conversation we have, re-traumatize me or bring back memories that are just not necessary.
Absolutely. Yeah. Perhaps the trauma is hiding them from you.
Yeah, exactly. And my brain just said, okay, off switch.
Yeah.
Don't need any more.
Very nice.
Because there's enough that I can remember that's good enough.
Yep.
That's good enough. Seal the deal. Close the envelope. We're good to go.
Good with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
yeah. So just really, really interesting.
I like that permission that she gave you.
Oh, it just,
It changes things.
I am rarely speechless, folks, but I was speechless there for a hot second. So, Erin, please continue.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. Then we've got excessive negative thoughts about oneself or the world. And so that kind of sounds like a lot of depression symptoms as well.
Spaces, yeah.
Yeah. And then the last kind of area is called hyperarousal. So reactivating or a feeling of being on edge may begin or worsen after experiencing a trauma. This category includes a broad range of physical and psychological symptoms, such as becoming irritable, quick to anger or aggressive, heightened startle reaction, difficulty concentrating, frequently scanning the environment or watching for trauma reminders, difficulty sleeping, feelings of anxiety or related symptoms such as a racing heart, upset stomach, or headaches, and risky or impulsive behaviors. Man, there's so many things that are going through my brain right now. First of all, I have a 4-year-old that sadly has had some trauma in his life, and he is like stuck in this hyperarousal state.
Really?
And it's really sad and frustrating because I am very, very much so trying to help him, but he doesn't understand his trauma, and so it makes me, it makes it difficult for me to help him with it. So he's got some therapy going on and such. But when I'm reading these things, I'm also thinking to myself, it's got to be hard to be a psychiatrist and diagnose folks because so many of these symptoms are similar to other mental health symptoms.
Exactly.
And so it's just difficult.
And I think that's a really important thing. We have to give a lot of credit to the mental health community, the counseling community, the drug and alcohol LADC community, because when we're trying to unwind somebody's pain, and then we're trying to unwind somebody's substance use disorder, and we're trying to unwind somebody's addiction, and they're coming out of their addiction, maybe beginning to feel their feelings for the first time. What a job for these individuals to do. So sometimes they get it wrong. And I remember Sue talking again when we talk about sometimes people who are going through the detoxification of their treatments, a lot of meds are popped onto people. And there's some criticism around that. And it's like, so what we're trying to do here, folks, is trying to get somebody just sort of regulated in the moment. So let's not judge what we're trying to do. Let's sort of say, we're just trying to help somebody so that they can feel as close to normalish, but not even normal, just a
little
baseline,
better.
a little better. There we
Yeah.
go, perfect.
Well, and here's the other thing, too. If we're not talking about our traumas, then they don't know that that's a piece of the symptoms. And so then we can get misdiagnosed on our own account, and we don't even know it.
Yeah.
We have to be totally vulnerable, and that's why we need people that are trustworthy and non-judgmental, because we've had ish in our life,
Yeah.
and we're just trying to get over it.
Well, and that's why what we do at Minnesota Recovery Connection is so amazing, because when you have somebody who has similar, not the same, similar lived experience, we can help people just begin to feel trustworthy enough by someone who's had some similar experiences, and we can sort of begin to unwind a little bit, not fix. We are not there to fix. But if somebody talks about trauma and then they all of a sudden they kind of close up a little bit, it's like hearing that you might be struggling with something. Why don't we see if we can find somebody who can deal with that? Oh, you've got a little bit of something else going on. Let's try to help you with that. So we're down to our last minute now. And I really want to say that when we're talking about trauma, it's about listening.
Yeah, and there's so much more, too. We haven't even mentioned the other types of trauma.
No, but this is going to be a conversation that we continue on.
Ongoing.
And what I want to do is I want to have our community now that we're beginning to build join us in supporting our mission by becoming maybe a monthly or annual donor at any level that's comfortable to you, or you can volunteer at Minnesota Recovery Connection. Your engagement helps sustain our efforts in fostering recovery and resilience. Visit us at minnesotarecovery.org, click donate or volunteer. You know what? We are people that are helping people in the community, so we need your help as well.
Absolutely.
So, Erin, it is a delight to see your charming face
Yay.
again. So have a great day.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Caddy. So good to be here with you.
Yes.